Well, that was something, as in that was a Nintendo Direct. To be honest with you, I'm actually pretty happy that I kept my expectations really low for this one, because to be honest with you, this Direct kind of felt like it was being held back by something. It almost seems like there's a bigger announcement around the corner, but I can't quite put my finger on it. But yeah, like I said yesterday, I was not expecting very much from this Nintendo Direct, and we really didn't get all that much from this Nintendo Direct. There's like, 3 or 4 highlights that I'm gonna highlight here, just because, there's just kind of what I do. But honestly, the whole thing was just kind of, whatever games are coming out for the rest of the year. I will say, there was like 2 or 3 games that were announced, that were coming out in 2026, which I think is like really, really interesting that they decided to do it. I mean, obviously the games that were announced to be coming out in 2026 are not things I would, kind of want to see in the Switch 2 Direct, so I guess it's nice that they kind of kept them there, and they were kind of, they were picking and choosing, saying, this is releasing on Nintendo Switch, and then this is releasing in 2025, or this is releasing in 2026, without saying Nintendo Switch. But yeah, so for like the first like third of this Direct, I'll be honest with you, I was kind of sitting there wondering why this wasn't a partner showcase. Later in the Direct, obviously, kind of made it known why this wasn't a partner showcase, because there was like 2 or 3 Nintendo products in there, which, I guess constitutes it as an actual Direct. The first thing to kind of break up that, the third-party bullshit was Metroid Prime 4. I actually said this yesterday, and that was the thing I was like the least surprised at. I actually thought it was a little teaser for Metroid Prime 2 Remastered. It wasn't that, but, the fact that we got another look at Metroid Prime 4, just kind of made me happy. Very, very much looking forward to this game. The game looks beautiful, looks amazing, very excited for it. I am very interested in the fact that they did not give a release date for it, because we are in 2025 and they're just saying 2025, so that I think that kind of confirms that it's going to be a dual release. That's kind of what I'm saying. I'm sure they didn't want to reveal this game's launch date, because that's probably going to be the same launch date as the Switch 2, and I'm sure they're waiting for next week to do that. They revealed something Pokemon. I don't know if I've mentioned it here. I know fuck all about Pokemon. Never grew up with it. I have a bunch of friends that are into it. I never got into it. But, it justified it making it an actual Direct, so I guess I was happy it was here. Yeah. One of the other big things, and they kind of got it out of the way, which I guess I don't know if they'll reiterate it next week, but, who knows. The kind of game transfer system. So they updated the game transfer system, and they made virtual games, or digital games only. They call them virtual game cards, and they made basically the transferring process for them easier. Now, they initially started out saying like, oh, you could just do it between 2 Switch systems, but I think we all knew that it was going to be meant for the Switch 2 anyway, and at the end they're like, yeah, you could also do this with the Switch 2. Which is like really good. I have some questions about like, downloading like the actual content of the games. They're making it seem like, oh, you could just snap your finger and you could just, transfer a game over to another console like that, when in reality it's probably going to take a couple minutes to actually download it. It's an interesting system. I think it just makes things that much simpler and easier, and honestly, the only reason it's here is because I know a lot of people were kind of concerned with the, game transfer ability after the Switch 2 reveal trailer. I know some people were concerned about that. I was a little concerned about that, but that also kind of solidified the fact that I'm not buying anything from Nintendo game-wise until the Switch 2 comes out. That was a big thing. And so the last thing, or the last game they showed off, was a new Tomodachi Life. Now, I have not played Tomodachi Life, but one of my very good friends absolutely loved the original Tomodachi Life, and I could see why, and we were talking about this yesterday, and the fact that was the last announcement was pretty funny. When they said we got one more game, and I started to see it, I'm like, oh, Jesus, it's another game I'm not gonna give a shit about, and then when it was became abundantly clear that it was Tomodachi Life, I'm like, oh, no fucking way, because everyone last night was shit posting about Tomodachi Life, because they're like, there's no way this is gonna happen, so, that was kind of cool. That was a good way to end off the Direct. Also at the end, Miyamoto showed off a new app. Basically, it's like a Nintendo News app, and they put out content daily. I'm sure they want to do that, and as a way to curb the leaks. So they're going to be, having this app. It's called Nintendo Today. That pretty much just gives you like Nintendo updates every day. And they said, once the Switch 2, once we have that Direct out next week, they're gonna, be posting shit about it every day. And I guess they're praying that the leaks are gonna stop. They won't. But yeah, pretty, it's a whatever direct. I mean, I don't really get the point of why they did that, but I guess they wanted to get a lot of their third-party games, just kind of out and be like, hey, this is what we're doing for the rest of the year. I'm actually kind of surprised that there wasn't that much Nintendo shit there. I actually was pretty much, kind of expecting the Primes 2 and 3 remastered or one of the Kirby game remakes. I wasn't expecting like Wind Waker like a bunch of people all the time think. But yeah, it was kind of lackluster, but I was kind of expecting it. I don't know. It happened.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Rhythm Heaven. Okay, bye.